Okay, I'm just going to tell you about different medications that are available for use in your aquarium. The first thing you need to know is that if you're medicating any sort of fish, it's really important to take out any chemical filtration. So remove any activated carbon, remove any phosphate filters, anything that might suck out the medication. It's also good to do a quarter water change between medications. So especially when you're trying to diagnose a medication, you usually try and treat for parasites first, then you treat for a bacterial infection. Usually not the other way around, because a bacterial infection is often a secondary infection. So if you see a fish and you're worried about the health of the fish, maybe it's got hazy eyes, maybe it's got little spots on it, maybe its fins aren't clean and clear, then you need to choose whether it's a medication for parasites, a medication for bacteria, or a medication for fungus. They're your three main ones. So if you see little white dots on the fish, I would be treating with this particular one, which is protozoan. It's very good for small protozoans, so white spot and stuff like that. The way you treat this is you're going to work out your dose rate, which is there, and then you're going to treat on day 1, 2, 3 and 6. Day 7 I'd do a bit of a water change and then I'd reevaluate. If this hasn't fixed your problem, you can consider redosing. After the second dose you would definitely change medications. So if you saw little white spots in the protozoan didn't work, then you could try something like the sterozoan, for example. And this is for flukes and larger intestinal problems, intestinal worms and things, and any larger parasites you use sterozoan. So both sterozoan and protozoan are parasite-based medications. Protozoan would be your first choice because the diseases that protozoan fix are much more common. The diseases that sterozoan fix are a lot less likely to be the actual cause because they're not as such common diseases. So we want to sort that out first, and obviously fixing your water quality, reducing any potential stress that might be in the aquarium is the first point of call before you even worry about how you're going to medicate. But once you decipher whether it was your water quality, whether it was fish fighting each other, or once you decipher what your problem is, then you go to the medications. So we go to parasites first. Then the next thing is whether we're going to go for a bacterial or a fungal. So basically if it just looks a bit white on the fish looks a bit discoloured, looks a bit hazy, then we go for a bacterial. If it starts looking furry and therefore it might be a fungus, then we can go for an antifungal medication. So these are usually secondary, not always. So basically spots, put this one, discoloration, this one, furry or fungusy, we add this one. These ones here you add daily. You're pretty much going to add 5 mils per 40 litres if that's the dose rate. Just see if I can see the dose rate. Yep, it's 5 mils per 40 litres, and you dose that every day. And I would dose that up to 7 days, and then I would evaluate whether it's actually working. The other thing that can be quite good too is doing a saltwater bath. So if you're really worried about your fish and you think you might lose it, you can make up a bath, and I usually going to use about 130 grams of salt for 4 litres for a bath. So you just get some water out of the fish tank, you put in 130 grams of salt per 4 litres, and you can actually bath the fish in that. Other infections too that the fish sometimes do is get a condition called bloat, and I find this is actually quite effective. This is one of our own products which help to control bloat, and you just make up half a bucket of water, put a tablespoon of this in, and leave the fish in there for 10 minutes. I find it has about a 50% success rate, so half the time it works and half the time it doesn't. So once again, if you notice your fish aren't quite right, first you evaluate why the fish are not quite right. The main reasons is going to be stress, so either water quality or physical threat, meaning they're getting injured, attacked by other fish, or nutrition. So Look at the food you're feeding. Feeding something like New Life Spectrum, you can't go wrong. If the fish have got little dots on them, you could treat it with a parasite medication. If you think it's got internal worms or something, you can actually try this one. If you think it's bacterial, so it's just discoloration, you try this one. If you think it's fungal, you try this one. If you're really worried about the fish and you want to do a saltwater bath, that's a possibility. And then if the fish do look bloated around the abdomen and you think it might be suffering from bloat, you can try this one. So the key to fish keeping is just to have healthy, happy fish in healthy water. And if you do see the fish getting sick, there are various options you've got.